Hello, beautiful people! Welcome to Wisdom Bytes. My name is David Jarzinka, and today is Father Craig Friday. Father Craig, how you doing?
I'm doing great, David. It's good to be back. As always, I love doing this, so
Yeah, it's
good
a
to be
fun time.
here. Yeah, I feel good.
For those of you watching, I did wear that same shirt for 3 weeks straight, but I have a new shirt now. So, Father Craig, you wear the same thing all the time. So
Yeah, could you tell that I'm wearing a different shirt?
Yeah.
Or is it the same shirt? I don't even know.
Yeah.
It might be the same shirt.
Yeah, do you do laundry every day?
No, I've got lots of black shirts. Though.
Ah, okay.
And I change my shirt every couple days.
That's good. That's good. Well, I've never heard anybody complain about how you smell, so you're probably doing great, you know? Being a responsible human being.
More importantly, I've never heard anyone complain to me about how I smell. So I do spray some cologne
That's
in the
good.
morning. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't want people to be afraid to approach me as I smell bad. You know?
That'd be a turn off.
I know, that'd be awful.
It's like, I don't want to talk to him.
Yeah,
He smells funny.
I know it.
Cool.
Can't smell through a camera. Lucky you.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. Yeah, so today's Father Craig Friday.
Here
And
we
Father
are.
Craig Friday is the part of the show where we take the audience questions, and Father Craig and I try to answer them.
do our best.
I realized that I started saying that. It was like, this is the part of the show where yada yada.
It's like the whole
and-
show, though. It's
yeah.
not like a part of the show. That's like
Well, we
the
have-
whole show.
Yeah. And it always makes me think of VeggieTales.
Oh.
It's like, this is the part of the show where we sing a silly song with Larry. Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what I've
Yeah.
been thinking about for the last month, and I was gonna fix it. I was gonna say something different this time.
But you said
and
it
I went-
anyway.
I went right back to it.
Okay. Well, we're learning right here. We're learning in real time. Real time learning right
Yeah,
here.
I even wrote notes to not say that, but here we are.
Well, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Alrighty. Well, the first question of the day.
Alexism, the way he says it. You ever
Yes.
hear Alex say it?
Yeah.
It's like, let's
Let's
go.
go.
I can't repeat it like the way he does it, but the way he does it, like it makes me want to go.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
Okay. Father Craig, if peanut butter wasn't called peanut butter, what would you call it?
Peanut spread?
I mean,
It's made from peanuts. Like,
Yeah.
okay, so it's peanuts. It's really good, but it's not I guess it's not really a butter, is it?
no, it doesn't have like.
I guess you
dairy.
kind of churn it, but you you crunch up the peanuts until it's a paste.
Yeah. and
Yeah,
then
it'd be
you,
like peanut paste.
peanut paste with some oil.
Okay, so what would you call it?
I don't know.
What is that?
I was hoping you had some sort of creative something, but
Well,
But-
mine was very practical that time, wasn't
very
it?
logical. Just okay, peanut spread.
Okay, I'd call it Jennifer. I don't know, man. Like I just make something up, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, because Jennifer's the one who made it.
There it is.
Yeah.
Jennifer's spread.
Yeah, Jennifer's spread.
Thanks, Jennifer, for
Thank you,
inventing
Jennifer,
peanut butter.
for making peanut butter.
Yep.
I don't know who actually made peanut butter.
I don't even have no idea. Cool. Well, let's get to our first listener submitted question of the day.
That was so ridiculous. Okay, continue.
That's why we do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Alrighty. I love this question.
Oh boy.
So can Catholics celebrate Halloween? What about decor?
Okay.
What about decor? Decorating our houses with witches, ghouls, mummies, and things associated with black magic.
Yeah.
Are there spiritual consequences if we decorate our houses?
Yes.
And like all these things. Social media, we wear clothing to celebrate Halloween. What do you
Right.
think?
So, I mean, as in anything, we want to understand what we're doing with our actions and behaviors. We don't want to ever do anything contrary to our faith or contrary to goodness, right?
Right.
So if by Halloween we mean celebrating evil, absolutely not, right? Should not be doing that. And so that is never okay, right? Even in the name of culture, especially in the name of culture. We want to almost baptize our culture to make it something holy. And so I think there's a way to celebrate Halloween in a way that connects to our faith, right? And I think namely that is what's happening. So Halloween is the night before All Souls, Saints Day and All Souls Day, right? So it's the evening, All Hallows Eve or something like that, right? And so what we're really doing is we're remembering the dead, remembering those who have died. And we're preparing especially to celebrate on the first those who have now become saints, and on All Souls Days to pray for those who have died and gone before us. And so things surrounding death, are usually associated with Halloween. And that can be things that are scary and frightening and stuff like that that's out there. I think rather what we want to do as Christians is recall the promise of the Lord in the face of death, that truly death is not something to be feared, but rather that for the Christian it becomes a doorway through which we walk to life and eternal life with the Lord. So how can we remember the dead and, in a certain sense, realize that death has truly lost its sting, right?
Yeah.
And then prepare to pray All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day on those next 2 days, right? And so I think we can celebrate Halloween in a holy way. I think we can remember our loved ones. I think we can, decorate the home in such a way that recalls the ones we love and the hope of salvation. And I think also the inspiration that they were to us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think you can wear, things like saints costumes are a beautiful way to do that. I think there's ways to do it well. Now, if we are taking evil things and glorifying them and sort of celebrating, that aspect of it, I think obviously that is a danger to the soul. Mm-hmm. And there is a spiritual consequence to that, because we could be literally opening our home to the enemy, and inviting the enemy into our homes and in our hearts and our minds. And we'd like to avoid that, obviously, as Christians. So I think decorating's fine. We can have some little spooky things, but what you dress as, for example, you can't abandon your morals. It's not free license to just do what any immoral thing you want, and sometimes it's treated that way.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So then how would you sort of discern that of like what is appropriate and what is not, versus like, could I hang up like pretend ghosts in my house or have a witch's cauldron or...
Yeah, that's a little more tough, I think. I'm not sure I've got a great answer to that. I think, a witch's cauldron's pretty much out, probably, if it's a witch's cauldron. But if it's just like a spooky sort of like, okay, let's decorate it, and I don't know, man, like that's hard for me, But I think better safe than sorry. Yeah. Maybe that's it. But I mean, like spiders' webs and spiders and the skeleton or something like that, I don't see necessarily a big problem with that. Especially since the intention is not, in that case, to glorify evil. It's just like, okay, this is the cultural tradition. But I think definitely something should be set apart for remembering our loved ones, right?
Yeah.
Remembering those who have maybe died in this last year of, specifically, I like what sometimes the Spanish culture does of putting up a picture of a loved one with some candles and things. And the skulls, like, I don't think skulls are necessarily bad. I think, for example, St. Francis of Assisi used to he's often depicted in art with one, remembering his death, remembering his mortality. And I think that's a helpful part of being Catholic, is to say, look, let's ponder our death. Let's ponder dying. It's not something to be afraid of with faith, right? And I think the things that remind us of death are fine.
Yeah.
But I think, where the line is drawn when you're, I think things like ghosts and ghouls and demons and witches, I think there's a danger there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Like zombies, which are like a fictional, like...
Yeah, maybe if it's fiction, might be more okay.
Okay.
Yeah. But the challenge is the enemy takes advantage wherever he can.
Sure.
Yeah. And I think probably better safe than sorry, right?
Yeah.
But we can remember death, and we can remember dying, and I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think, death isn't to be glorified, but we do have to realize that Christ has won the victory over it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
I hope that helps. I mean, I think there's some prudential discernment in your own homes and families that takes place.
Absolutely. I think that, I've got a lot of follow-up questions that I don't think we have time for today.
No, probably not.
We'll keep moving forward. Alrighty, so the second question is, what's the difference between gossiping and venting? So there's like, maybe there's some level of like, I just need to get this off my chest to people, versus like...
No, and I think that's real. I think that's very real, because I think it's not... I think we need to have places to process things emotionally and mentally and, wrestle with things. And I think there's appropriate places and people to do that with, and inappropriate places and people to do that with.
And how would you figure that out?
Well, let's read the Catechism of the Catholic Church to start out with. And what does it say about gossip? So Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph 2488 and 2489 is a good place to kind of start. So it says, the right to the communication of the truth is not unconditional. Everyone must conform his life to the gospel precept of fraternal love. This requires us in concrete situations to judge whether or not it is appropriate to reveal the truth to someone who asks for it. Okay. Charity and respect for the truth should dictate the response to every request for information and communication. The good and safety of others, respect for privacy, and the common good are sufficient reasons for being silent about what ought not to be known or for making use of discreet language. The duty to avoid scandal often commands strict discretion. No one is bound to reveal the truth to someone who does not have the right to know it. Okay. So I think this tells us a little bit about gossip is that people may ask us about somebody, and yet they may not have a right fully to that truth. And we have to consider the goods of discretion right there, the privacy of others, scandal, and what that might be cause if it's, might be cause for if certain things are revealed. And so fraternal love and charity ought to be the measure of that. We need to be thinking of the good of others, not just simply sharing information for the sake of sharing information, even if it's true.
Sure.
Okay. So I think gossip would be done more in sort of a way that is not without consideration for those things, just simply saying things to people without considering whether or not they truly need to know them or not, if they have a need for that information. I think those are pretty good helps first to consider what gossip is. Venting would be, let's say I have a non-public setting to a confidant who we know can be trusted to keep things under their collar, and not for I want to express my, just my malice or anger or to hurt the other person's reputation, but rather, hey, I need to be able to process with someone. You're a trusted confidant. I can do that with, and I really am looking for the best way in this situation to grow in love and charity.
Gotcha.
Right. I think that's part of it, right? And it may be sort of seeking a solution or resolution, or it may just be, I want to love this person, but in order to be able to choose love, I need to be able to share this in this setting, so I can unburden that, and then I can go and choose love with that person.
Yeah.
So a good example of this is my brother priests, right? We struggle with gossip just as much as anyone else, but of course, the sacrament of confession is inviolable, and we keep confidences very well.
Yeah.
But what I mean is, when we are struggling with something personally, I can go to my brother priest and say, hey, I've got this pastoral situation. I'm not going to give any names. Here's what's going on. I'm really frustrated and angry with this. And, I'm just asking you to hear me out. And afterwards, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do what I know charity demands, right? But, can you just listen for me for a little bit? And I think that would be a fine thing. Yeah. I think another good place for maybe that would be spiritual direction. Sometimes counseling can be helpful. If you're married, your spouse, so long as, there is just real sense of keeping under your, the counsel, under in confidence and things like that. And I think there's a difference between those things.
Yeah. It sounds pretty good. Especially like the situations where you're talking about where you're going to your brother priest. I know that you're an external processor. And so being able to just say it out loud, sometimes it opens it up like, actually, I understand the situation much better now because I had to explain it to somebody else.
Yeah, and that's what I find a lot is it can be a very challenging line to walk. But I mean, I shouldn't process. I mean, I'm really good about identifying things that are really meant to be private, and obviously that's a skill that priests should and ought to have. I know when things are under the collar, so to speak. And
what does that mean? You said that twice now. Like under that collar. Okay,
yeah, it means it's my collar. So it's
your collar,
my collar,
not just like anybody's collar.
My collar, priest collar.
Cool.
Yeah, meaning that it's something that I'm privy to because I'm a priest,
Gotcha.
And therefore it has a confidence, right? Yeah.
Okay. Cool. That makes sense.
Good.
I think that was a pretty good.
I tried.
Pretty good summary of those two different things.
Hope I didn't cause scandal. Yeah.
Alrighty. Our final question for today is, why does it seem like God changes his attitude from the Old Testament to the New Testament?
Yeah. I think sometimes it does seem that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I think also there's a bit of a misconception about that. I mean, I don't know how thoroughly, you or anyone really has read the Old Testament. And while there are these aspects of this God of sort of wrath sort of depicted, and there are moments where God says to do these things, that's not the whole of the Old Testament, is it? Right. In fact, there's whole bodies of literature expressing God's mercy, his goodness, his love. And I don't think that depiction is wholly accurate a lot of the times where we make this clear divide between the new and the old. Because he's definitely expressed that way in the Old Testament as this loving God who forgives and forgives and forgives and welcomes back those people.
But we also don't see God doing the same things after Jesus' death, where he just, wipes out entire groups of people specifically?
Sure.
Like,
I'm not finished with the answer yet.
okay,
so.
sorry.
no, we're still going. So that's the first thing I would say, right? The second thing I would probably say is that, how God taught in the Old Testament is a little different in how he teaches in the New Testament.
Okay.
And so and the same thing's true sort of in the home. Like when your children are young, you're going to teach them more, right, through sort of a direct consequence for their actions that is more material, a spanking perhaps, right, or a timeout, or a strong talking to, right? And then as they mature, that might look different, right? Son, I'm very disappointed in you. Right? It might be a different way that a father teaches his son, for example. And so in the Old Testament, God often does teach more directly through material consequences as well. So that's another thing I think to be taken into account. Then the development of understanding of God is something else that's depicted in the Old Testament and the New Testament. And so you see a God who is slowly revealing himself to his people. And so, what's the first thing that he has to communicate to them? That I am the Lord your God, right? Mm-hmm. Above all else. I'm not like these other gods. I am different, right? And so that's the priority. And so that's going to happen in a very primitive way. And their understanding of God may not appreciate the fullness or the wholeness of who God is because they're learning one aspect of him. And so they see these things, right? And, they're saying, well, God told us to wipe out all these people, right? And what God's really teaching them and expressing to them is not to compromise with things that take you away from God, right?
Okay.
And I think also, too, that's the other thing is sometimes their understanding of God's will, right, may not be what God actually commands, right? And so I think that's another aspect of it too, is sometimes you'll see people interpret God's will and do so very poorly, right, in the Old Testament. And I'm trying to think of a good example of this. I would have to go and look, but, there's sort of places where people sort of say it's God's will, and it was really their own human weakness that brought about certain actions and behaviors. Now, that's not always the case in the Old Testament. There's other cases where it's like language where God directly commands the wiping out of entire peoples, right? And that's a little harder to understand, right, I think. And but I think there's enough there to sort of say it's not as black and white as we think it is. I think there's room for the development of the understanding of people coming to understand God. And we know that in Christianity, the fullness of who God is revealed, and we come to know him more completely as well. And accounting for, I think, probably the difference between the immediate sort of material consequences that the Lord uses in the Old Testament more, so to speak, and then when Christ, in that deeper spiritual maturity, to see the spiritual consequences of that more is the emphasis, I would say.
Okay. Gotcha. So you wouldn't see as much of the immediate physical, like Sodom and Gomorrah, just like
right. No, God's God. He could still have that if that's what he wanted to do. Now, I think another important thing is the understanding between God's active will and his passive will, permitting will.
Sure.
And that's a distinction that's developed more and understood more deeply. And this would be an instance of people's understanding of God developing, right? So God's active will is different from his permissive will, right? Permissive will means he allows it to happen and he can draw a greater good out of it, but he doesn't directly say, I'm going to do this thing to you. Rather, he leaves us to the consequence of human freedom, right? And it does take place. But he's not saying, I want bad things to happen to you. He's saying, okay, I will allow this because I want a good thing to happen ultimately, which is your conversion, or ultimately the people coming to know him as the Lord and love him and things like that.
I see. I'm still struggling with it because there are things like the flood and like God turning people to pillars of salt that I struggle with how those things are like, I want a greater good to come from that.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's something a lot of people struggle with. And I personally, I do too. Look at that and like, okay, how do I resolve this? But one of the beauties of faith is that the paradox, the seeming, things that are in contradiction to each other and yet both seem true, where those places find resolution and are sought is actually sort of stepping stones to God to come to know him, love him, and serve him. And so I think there's a level there of chewing on those things and asking the Lord to bring sort of a resolution to them to understand how both could be true at once.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That's a tough one.
It is. No, it's not an easy one, and I'm sure that the answer will not satisfy everyone. But I would say keep looking for the answer, right?
Yeah.
I would say, there's a lot of people who write on this topic, and I think maybe we could revisit even in the future. You do some research, I do some research, come back and talk about it some more.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Alrighty. Well, I think that's a good place to end off for today. If you have a question that you would like Father Craig and I to discuss, please send that in to podcast@txstatecatholic.org. And if you'd like to be on our other segment, other segment of Wisdom Bytes, there it is.
Yeah, that's right. We're in Wisdom Bytes.
Yeah, we've got Testament
segment.
Tuesdays.
That's right. That's another segment.
Yeah. So this is where Testament Tuesdays is the time where we share our stories to give God the glory. So you could also send in an email requesting to be on that part of the show. And then finally, follow us on Instagram at OLOWTXState to stay up to date with everything going on at Our Lady of Wisdom. And until next time, this has been Wisdom Bytes.
Our Lady of Wisdom.
Pray for us.